Hi, welcome to our 7th demonstration inspiration video for the Triangle Project. Today we're looking at paper weaving. You'll just need a few materials as usual. A piece of paper, bond is best, computer paper, thinner paper because you need to manipulate it a little bit. And you can do it a few different ways. What we're doing is we're cutting slats into it, but we're not obviously cutting all the way through. We're going to leave an edge around to hold it in place. What you can do is fold it in half, and on that folded seam mark out, I've done 1/2 inch, that seems to work fairly well, because you're going to cut a triangle out of this. So if you go much larger when you cut your triangle, you're not going to see as much of the weaving. I found 1/2 inch apart works best, and then I'm just drawing a line straight up. So you can see I'm not going right to the end. I can go to the end at the seam where I folded it, because when I unfold it, that's going to be the center, in the center of the paper. You don't want to go to the ends, and you can just go ahead and mark that. So you can use scissors or a Olfa or straight blade if you're comfortable with that. And I'll just show you, kind of like when you make snowflakes, paper cut snowflakes, you don't want to cut a hole right through. So you're just going up to your designated spot. You can leave 1/2 inch or more. If it go too close, then it gets a little harder with the weaving to keep the edges together. So you just go ahead and cut that, and then when you open it out, you can see it's all contained, but the slats are there. Otherwise, what I do is I tend to use a straight blade, and I just cut it without folding the paper. That's up to you, but what you're doing is you're creating basically the weaving loom with which you're going to, so I just use a straight blade because that's what I'm comfortable with and used to. Same idea, just don't go all the way to the end. Alright, so I've started just to show you what's going on here and what we're hoping to achieve. With weaving, it's basically an in-out process. So for this one here, I'm going over the first slat, under the second, over the third, under the fourth, and so on, all the way across. All right, so you just feed it through, and you can see I'm pushing up and down those slats, and that's why the thinner paper works best. Also, I go down to the bottom, not where the other weaving is, because where it's woven up there is tighter and firmer. It's harder to move those, manipulate those strips. So if you work down at the bottom, you can then scoot it up and tighten it up at the top. It's just much easier to work that way. So I'm going to pull that across. Now I'm using paper way back from that very first demonstration video. I told you I like to make that at the beginning because I've pretty much used it in every other demonstration video since. Very cool to slice up, and really interesting in a weaving because you're just seeing little bits of it with the solid color in between. So very cool. Just pushing them up, tightening them up. There you go. We're not worried about the ends sticking out, we're just getting our weaving. So that one I went over the first one, so the next one I have to start under. And so you'll see it's the opposite, over, under from the one above. Now, this paper is actually the collage demonstration paper with the strips of tissue. Let's push that up again. You'll see it can get up nice and tight. For this, I chose to cut my strips at about 1/4 inch, nice and thin. It gives me quite a bit of pattern to cut my triangle from. Alright, just advancing forward here, it gets a little harder, it gets less movement. You can see at the bottom because the weaving really tightens that paper up. So it's a little trickier at the end. And this is where, you need your base paper to be thinner so you can manipulate it. But I do find that if you're, with the other paper that you use, if it's a little stiffer, thicker, it kind of helps you weave it through sometimes a little better, especially at the beginning stages where it gets really tight here. Then you got to be able to fold the, not fold it, but work it in and out a little like you're sewing, just to get it down. And we're creating a piece of paper here, and then we're going to cut our triangles from it. So I don't need to go all the way to the bottom to make that work. And again, I'm not worried about my ends. Just creating that piece of paper. And pull it across, find where I like the color, and push it up. Okay, so just secure everything, we'll tighten the little sides up. The next step is the most important step of this whole process, and it's securing all of your weaving. I'm using just a clear packing tape because it's strong and it's wide. We're going to flip that over. It even looks great on the back side. Kind of interesting, right? And I want to absolutely cover the entire back of this woven paper with the tape. This is going to secure all of those strips so that you can then cut from this woven paper that you've created. You want to make sure that you get every bit of this paper, so if you have to overlap that tape a little bit, no problem. It's really important to secure all of those strips so that when you cut your triangle from it, you don't lose all the weaving. The pieces will just all fall apart. So this is super important to secure the back. And sometimes tape's hard to work with, so you just want to take your time and ensure that it's all completely covered and secure before you do any cutting with it, because you certainly don't want to lose all that beautiful weaving and time that you've put into this. So I've got one little strip there. Okay, once I've secured it from the back, then I'm using my triangle template that I have, and I'm just going to use a straight blade. You can trace it and then cut it with scissors, no problem. This is just sort of what I'm used to and comfortable with. And because I've secured it all entirely, I can just go ahead and trim that triangle from the woven paper. Just make sure it doesn't move on me. And I want to make sure I go to the just slightly outside. You see where paper at the bottom? Not that I didn't tape at the back, it is still attached to that piece, but the front flaps will be a bit loose. And get that third side down. Alright, and let's see. And voila, there is a woven paper triangle. Now anything on the front face of this triangle, because we taped the back and not the front, obviously, you may want to go and secure those with just a very tiny little bit of glue, just a tiny bit. And I'm only really going to do the ones that I feel are going to flap up a little bit. The stiffer paper kind of lays flat. It's not a problem. And there you go. So super simple, takes a little time and patience, but I think really effective and fun. Thanks very much for watching.